This is Ivy Unleashed, a Gold Ivy production.
All right, Hannah, and while we have you here, I feel like we have a lot of things we want to get into. And so we have a million more questions about birth control, infertility, foods to avoid when you're working on hormone balance, life expectancy, and you have a community of women that ask you all kinds of questions. So we really want to just dive in to all the information we can possibly get out of you. Are you okay with this?
Let's do it.
Love it. So Hannah, with my experience with birth control, having 3 kids, all of it, I have seen my hormones do some wild things. And when I was on birth control, I didn't realize it in the moment because I knew I needed it, that I hated everybody and everything. I was like, gosh, I know I'm in a tough spot in college and life is hard right now, but I don't want to talk to anybody.
You felt significantly different mentally on birth control.
Yes, and it's tough because women need birth control in a lot of situations, especially in the age range that are listening to this podcast. So can we just talk about the impact that birth control has on our bodies and our hormones?
Yes, absolutely. And great question, because so many people have taken this or taken some form of birth control. So birth control, it works, right? It works to control your birth. And as with any medication, this does not go without side effects. So any medication you're going to take, there's a way it works, and you're probably not going to love every part of that. And with birth control, it has this effect where a lot of your hormones get lowered, very, very lowered. So then you don't have to worry about, ovulating and getting pregnant. And most women, they deal okay with it. They tolerate it pretty well. They don't have major issues. Personally, I was on it. So, I think I was on it literally for 12 years. And I thankfully, I didn't have any major side effects with it. But common side effects, if you're going to have them, there can be weight gain. There can be mood swings like you're talking about where you just don't feel right. Headaches are common. And that makes sense because we are, messing with your hormones a bit here to achieve that goal.
And how does it impact our health long term? Because the more I got into holistic, functional medicine, the more I learned really how much it was impacting my gut health and not in a positive way.
So I'm assuming you're talking about the oral contraceptive birth control, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that was the one I was referring to as well. And there are some non-hormonal options. But so what we know is that it does deplete B vitamin levels specifically. So while you're on it and definitely coming off of it, just supplement with a really good, B vitamin complex. And in terms of, destroying gut health, I haven't seen too much of that in my experience. It's kind of like just taking any medication. It's going to alter things as long as you are, doing your healthy thing and I know you do, Brooke, of supporting your gut with, a good, probiotic, maybe an L-glutamine, eating healthy, right? Then it has been shown to be okay for most women. And the other thing I'll say, because you guys mentioned fertility, in studies, it has not shown an impact on fertility, even being on birth control long term. So I know that's a concern of a lot of women is I have been on this so long, when I get off, I never be able to have kids? And they have studied this and that hasn't been the case. But I will say it just, what you really need to watch is how long it takes for your hormones to restart, if you will. And that's what can be different for a lot of women because we're each so unique. So some people get off birth control and they have their period back within 3 months. That was me. It was pretty quick. Some women don't have it for over 9 months. So it's how long is it going to take your body to start chugging on its own again, where your hormones are doing everything they're supposed to be doing on its own without this impact of birth control. And birth control can, and does work by affecting hormones as high as your brain. So it can be a long cycle to get re-regulated with. And I find that is the part where a lot of women get confused about and sometimes, say, it was the birth control, it's ruined. But I'll just say scientific study wise, it doesn't show to have that impact specifically to decrease fertility. That's not what the studies show. But it's just how long will you personally take to restart.
And I think that's tough because you don't know until you're on it, right? So for me, I did need birth control and I had terrible cramps, passed out from them in high school. And so finally went on the pill, and then my gut health tanked and I was switching different pills. I got the arm implant, like, oh, it's your hormones. Oh, it's your gut health. And it was just this big confusion. And then I got off of it and I felt a lot better. And so it wasn't until I got off of it. So what would you say for people who are debating on going on the pill, who their doctor is like, oh, take this and it'll help with your quote unquote hormone imbalances?
So yeah, taking it for hormone imbalances versus taking it for birth control, those are two different reasons. And if it's for birth control, definitely consider all your options. But, weigh those options. So as a teenager or as a young woman, will you use birth control where you can just take a pill every day? That's easy for a lot of women. That's free still. Or will you want to do something like natural tracking, or, there's non-hormonal, like a copper IUD, things like that as well. So you have to weigh, your life as well, the convenience, the cost, and why you're taking it for. But when you get into where I start having these deeper conversations is when women are older. And so a lot of women I treat have PCOS or endometriosis. And those conditions cause a lot of the symptoms you're saying. Like, women have a very hard time with these conditions. They have weight where they could be eating perfectly for months and they might lose a pound. And I've witnessed this myself. And they can have horrible cramps. They're skipping work, they're skipping school. It's like debilitating pain. So these are no joke. And with conventional medicine, the treatment, well, the number one treatment is lifestyle, I'm happy to say. But the second treatment is birth control. And why? Because, it works to mask those hormonal symptoms and to really help women with those symptoms. And it can be life-changing in that sense. But then again, when you get to this age where maybe you do want to consider children, or you just want to leave that door open, that's when it becomes really tricky. And I'm happy to work with clients at this phase because it is hard, because you don't want to deal with those really bad symptoms, but you need something else, right, to manage what's going on. And that's when it's going to take that hard work we're referring to, that lifestyle commitment. And I'm happy to say it does work, but you really need that guidance in what exactly you're supposed to do hormone wise, which again is why I created this program as a step-by-step. Guys, this is what you can do. I promise it will help. And even with fertility, like, once you manage that stress on an ongoing basis, once you're fueling your body with whole foods, sunshine, I know it sounds like rainbows and glitter, but moving in a way that is good for your hormone health, it all really, really it falls into place.
Something I keep thinking about is a young woman being in the doctor's office, no matter actually whatever age you are, you're in the doctor's office and you're intimidated by their education, their experience, their knowledge, their like authority or power over you. And you just take what they say and you're like, okay, that I should probably do that. I mean, they're smarter than me. They make more money than me. I'm in this office, and you just go with what they say. And what I keep hearing and thinking about is like guidance, right? And support and knowledge for yourself and listening to your body and what's right for you. And so I'm so happy you exist and that you've created this community. And I would love to get into that, because I feel like sometimes you need to hear other people's experience with their hormones, their body, especially people, I keep thinking like PCOS, and you feel like you're all alone. You don't know for sure if you even have it. It's tough to even know or like get diagnosed with it. It's super challenging. And so I would love for you to just, first of all, talk about this community that you've created and what you're just talking about, and how people can kind of access that and to have more access to you and to other women that might be going through something similar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what you described with, sitting in the doctor's office, I remember sitting there at 14. That was my exact experience. This person knows a lot, I don't. And again, not that they were doing me any wrong. It would just have been nice to know how it works. And when I get off of it, what happens and how long should I be on it?
Yes.
That was definitely never talked about. So yes, so my community is exactly for that. I call it, a safe space for you to ask your questions and women supporting women. It's not just me in there answering every question, medically and all that. It's women as little as, I'm trying to stop drinking coffee. What have you guys done? I'm trying to sleep better, and I definitely chime in, but just everyday women questions where they can not feel dumb, where they cannot have an expert, quote unquote, preaching to them, just where you can feel safe and you can feel heard. And yeah, it's completely free. It's just a Facebook group that you can be admitted into. And I mean, I feel like it's been open for maybe 2 months. We have over 3,000 women, I'm happy to say. And I, host videos on there as well. So definitely join if you have questions, exactly like you mentioned, getting support with PCOS, hormonal things that you probably have not had support for before.
Yeah. And the education piece, right? Before you are going on a medication that's going to alter your brain and your hormones, just knowing what your options are and having a community for support, for questions, for guidance. It's something I wish I had. It would have changed everything. So I'm so grateful that you're offering this. I'm a part of it. It's a beautiful community. It's only continuing to grow, and the better it gets, the better it gets. So join in if you're a woman listening, or, if maybe your daughter needs some questions. I'm around you just to learn more. The more we know, the better we can help and serve. And that's what life's about.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, any age for sure. And yeah, you mentioned medications again. And just the last thing I'll say about the birth control is that gets brought up a lot, and women are more hesitant now than ever. But I would say they're more hesitant now more than ever to take any medication. And that's something, going back to TikTok, that I've really seen with being on social media is people are taking, more control into their hands because they have it literally in their hand where they can just research on their own. So they have sources, credible or not all the time, where they, this person had exactly what I have and they took X, Y, Z. So with that, comes a lot of personal advocacy, which is amazing. But yeah, I just have noticed that trend. People are questioning their experts more just in terms of wanting more options and wanting more education.
Yeah. And I think a big piece of that is if they're not listening to you, because I just think of my experience after my third child where I didn't want to go on any birth control. And my doctor was very directive, like, just do the copper IUD. And I was like, I don't want anything in my body. Like, you're not listening to me. I just said 3 times in a row, like, I don't want anything in my body. And so I think it's like finding that person that will hear you, right? And until you do, right? So that's why I think this community is so great. And I would love to talk about TikTok because I love seeing the questions people ask you and the topics that blow up for you. And one is just like what to avoid. You have control over what you're eating. What would you say are kind of some top things we should try to not eat if we want to keep our hormones in balance?
Yes. So, and TikTok is a 30-second clip, and those comments will get you. So I'm happy we're talking about it where I could explain a little bit more. But in that video, I believe I said alcohol, caffeine, and avoiding high carb, high sugars for breakfast. And this is, specifically hormonal imbalance. But I would say alcohol, I mean, guys, it's not good for us in any way. You can have the red wine argument. I'll give people that because there's a study, a really famous study called the Blue Zone study, and they studied the oldest populations in the world. And one of the 8 or so things that they did was drink red wine and drink it moderately. But there's also a community aspect that goes with that. So I'll give you that with the red wine. But otherwise, alcohol it's counterproductive to healing your hormones and oftentimes to losing weight, which are big things I see. It kind of directly conflicts with all of that. So caffeine, this is the one people were up in arms with. So, and this is my personal experience. A lot of people I see drinking coffee are drinking coffee laced with sugar, I say. So it's the frappuccinos, it's the oat milk latte with caramel, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And yes, you can make healthier versions of these. And yes, drinking one in the morning will be okay. It's really the sugar, though. That's what I was more so hinting at. And caffeine plus sugar, your hormones are like screaming, especially if you're doing this afternoon. it's sleep is now affected, that afternoon energy crash. So if you're drinking a black cup of coffee, maybe two black cups of coffee in the morning, that is okay. And it's, actually seen to be a little bit protective with common chronic diseases. But if you're overdoing it, if we're, drinking 4 cups of coffee a day, if you're drinking coffee after noon, that can disrupt your adrenals and your sleep cycle. So that's why I said that. And then high carb, high sugar breakfasts. Probably no one should be eating high carb, high sugar breakfast because your hormones have important cycles they go through. And in the morning, it's really important to support with protein and healthy fats. So the sugars, and a lot of people have probably experienced this. You eat like oatmeal, maybe it's a packaged oatmeal with a little sugar. You'll probably be hungry in a half hour. Those are simple carbs that aren't giving you fuel to really get your day going. Whereas if you have, eggs with some spinach or something like that, you're going to feel full a lot longer. And it's more of that steady state of energy where you don't have that crash. So hormone balance wise, yeah, the alcohol, the excessive caffeine or caffeine with sugar, and then the high carb, high sugar are not great.
I love it. And I love the examples you get. I think people can really see themselves in the examples you get. And then okay, so tell me what to eat. I know in my journey, it was like, everyone's telling me what not to do. And I'm like, so what the hell do I eat? And there are a lot of options right now. I see that. But at the time, it's like restriction mode. And so I just invite anyone listening, something that really helped me was looking at things you're moving towards, right? You're moving towards energy, towards feeling full for longer. You're not restricting yourself and starving yourself from these foods. You are moving towards more of what you want. That's health, vitality. And for me, energy was a big one. So Hannah, I'd love to hear your take on energy, maybe some natural things that people can do to get some more energy.
Well, the first would be sleep. Mm-hmm. So focus on your sleep. And that's the thing with stress, again, I think is very downplayed. And once you're sleeping good throughout the night, then your daily energy levels will be a little bit better. And then after that is that stress management. The 10 minutes we've talked about a lot previously will help because that's a daily trend that's going on. And then other things, and again, I have all of these spelled out in my program, but off the top of my head, there's a lot of adrenal adaptogens, which are a group of supplements that are very cool because they adapt to if your cortisol levels are too high or too low. They kind of go with you on that journey. So ginseng is a popular one. Rhodiola, that's really good for afternoon energy. That's one I recommend frequently. And then another great thing is walking after you eat. Mm-hmm. So I swear by this one. It's something I definitely practice, that I preach on this. After you eat a meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, even if it's 10 minutes, just get outside ideally and walk around. And that helps not only your digestion, your gut health, but it's going to help those energy levels. They actually taught us in PA school, one of the worst things you can do after you eat is go lay on the couch, which most people do, especially after dinner. So just standing up a little bit or getting a walk in, all those things will really help you with the energy.
Yeah, because it helps regulate our blood sugar, if I'm correct.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about life expectancy because when we were deciding what testing Brooke and I were going to do, it just intrigued me to think about like, how can I live longer? Also with better health. Yes. But I know that's something that you get asked about, that you've talked about on TikTok, is life expectancy. So what are some things we can do to kind of lengthen and improve the quality of our life?
Intermittent fasting is high on that list. And if, for whatever reason, you're not an intermittent faster, if you're cleared like by your provider to do a day fast, that would be really incredible. So, and I have two options for that, and I'll explain a little what I mean. So in my program, I have what's called a daily detox, which you can do, after a vacation, or I recommend it like once a month. And it's basically liquids, but it includes protein shakes. So you still, you're okay by the end of the day. But that just really gives you that reset without intaking all the calories, where your body kind of still thinks it's fasting. If you're not into intermittent fasting or the daily detox I offer, then the third great option is looking into this company. I'm not affiliated at all, but it's called Prolon. I don't know. Have you guys heard of them? Mm-mm. It's like they call it a fast mimicking diet. They are at all the, anti-aging medicine conferences I go to now. And what they've developed and it's from this really famous Dr. Walter Longo. He's like the father of fasting, and they developed this food plan that you can eat, but it keeps your body in a fasting state. So if you're someone who's like, I'm hungry, I'm not fasting, but I want to get these effects, you can do this fast, and it's just a day long. You can do 1 day or a 5 day, but I would just do the 1 day. And you get these little bars or these little soups or little protein shakes throughout the day. So you're still eating something, but your body is still getting all those amazing benefits. So back to your question, anti-aging life expectancy, definitely dabble in whatever fasting feels right for you. And then a marker I get checked, I like to look at mitochondrial health. And really the only way to do that is through checking a ferritin level. And a ferritin level is traditionally looked at as part of an anemia workup. So if you have an issue with your red blood cells, a lot of women struggle with anemia, especially if you have heavy periods. So it's probably something that you've had looked at before, at least an iron level. And if the ferritin level is too high, and this is something that I've learned clinically, I'll say that. I have looked at research. The research is not there yet. But in my clinical experience, my current company and my last practice I was in, which was integrative, we always checked these. And we found that the higher the level was, I'll just say the worse off as a whole that person was. And sometimes it was so far as like you shouldn't say that person's a ticking time bomb, we would say, because they were just really struggling. Like a person who maybe has diabetes and a heart condition, and they are just struggling with weight, and they continue to just eat a poor diet. So that's someone, unfortunately, that picture of not healthy, not great lifestyle that you might see have a higher ferritin level. And again, that's clinical experience with that, but it tended to correlate with the lifestyles we saw people leading. So that's just always something interesting that I like to get checked.
Yeah. And how can you lower that number?
The same way you hire it. So getting that lifestyle back on track. And if that's an overwhelming, sentence just to hear, I would again advise you to check out my program just or work with a great coach like yourself, where you can get that step-by-step how-to list that so many people need, since they just have this busy lifestyle that we all do. You don't have to wonder, what am I going to eat today? Just having a plan in place is really what sets you up for that healthy lifestyle.
Yeah. And accountability, right? Yeah. Support, like you said.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. When I did my testing with Hannah, she talked to me about, you've got the lifestyle pieces intact. Like you're doing the stress management techniques, you're working out, you're mostly trying to eat healthy. I've got a sugar problem. But besides that, she was telling me some things that I could do was the complex B vitamin. And you mentioned a certain type of B vitamins. Do you want to kind of touch on that and how that kind of plays into anti-aging?
Yeah, so methylated B vitamins. B vitamins have this long name, and basically they can break down into a toxic chemical if it's the regular B vitamin. Most people clear that out pretty well. But a lot of people, especially women, have this MTHFR issue. And I'm sure a lot of your listeners will know what that means. It's an issue with methylation. And basically what it means is you have a little bit more trouble doing things like breaking down. So that's why it's extra important for you to take a methylated B vitamin. That condition I mentioned is so common that I just tell everyone to take it. And methylated are safe. So it just means that you don't have that toxic buildup of the chemical going on. And again, most people tolerate that really well, but that is a great vitamin. And Bs are just one of those vitamins that most people could benefit from.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, right, I had my hormone levels checked, and I just gotten off the pill. So my B vitamins were low, and then I needed the methylated one as well. And something I learned through my journey with hormones was the clearance of your hormones, right? Actually getting them out of your body, eliminating. I was super constipated. I wasn't sweating. Like my whole body was just completely shut down. And so through this journey, I'm learning a little bit to help me. And I'm learning that it never ends. So if you're listening right now and you're like so overwhelmed, there will always be 1,005 things you can do for your health. But one thing is going to then spiral into another thing and another thing. You're going to get a little more energy. You're going to feel a little more empowered. You're going to feel like a badass, and it's just going to keep going. But when you know there is no ending, it sets you free. It empowers you to keep making these changes, because the better it gets, like I said, Catherine, our coach, always tells us, the better it gets, the better it gets. So I just want to empower those people listening, if they feel overwhelmed, to know there are resources, there are small things you can do that are going to have an amazing impact. And a lot of the things Hannah has mentioned are free. Mm-hmm. Getting outside, taking 10 minutes to breathe, focusing on your breath, getting out of a sympathetic fight or flight nervous system, right? All of these practices, you don't have to go buy the supplements. You don't have to buy the organic food yet if you're not there. You can still make small changes that are going to impact your health in a positive way.
Mm-hmm.
I was just going to add to what Brooke said, and actually a client said it to me, and she said, the last thing that I saw move or change was weight loss, and that's what she came to me for. And it was and it was literally like 7 months in, she finally started noticing. But before that, she started sleeping better and her skin got better. So you're totally right. Look for the little things to keep you motivated along the way.
Yeah, a lot of times the first thing they're looking for is the scale, and if the scale doesn't move, they give up. It's like,
Yep.
Okay, we can focus on a lot of different things, and mostly just feeling better. And that can mean a lot of different things for people.
Yeah, I'd say ditch the scale.
Something I'm when I think about hormones, I get scared of. My mom had a horrendous menopause experience, and I'm scared because I'm her daughter, and I would just love to talk about menopause a little bit, and maybe some things I might not know about menopause, or things that can kind of help your experience as you're approaching it. Anything you could offer, I will take, Hannah.
Yes. So what you just said is one thing that comes to mind. If you don't know when you're going to start menopause, or you don't know what to expect, unfortunately, look to your mom. So yours might not be a wonderful transition.
It's okay. We're here for you.
Oh, you're going to want to run.
But yes, that it does play, a little reflection in your moms or even your aunts, even as in terms of how old they were when they went through it. So if you're wondering, talk to them and see if they're willing to talk about it. Menopause in general is interesting because it's actually one day. It's a day 12 months after your last cycle, or, a lot of women have had hysterectomies and stuff like that. So that can also be it, or diagnosed by lab values, like an FSH level, but it's literally one day. So really you're either premenopausal or you're postmenopausal. And that's just something I find that a lot of people don't know, but it's really when your ovaries stop producing those sex hormones, or they're just super minimal. So then your sex hormones are obviously depleted, and they come a little bit from other sources like your peripheral tissues and your adrenal glands. But otherwise, you're pretty tanked. And that's where a lot of the traditional symptoms that women experience come from, like the hot flashes, the sex drive changes, the mood swings, all that come from that drastic hormone change. And another thing is, it can be harder to lose weight. And this isn't for every single woman, thankfully. And again, there's genetic factors at play here, but they may become highly carb sensitive. So this is that woman I've talked about earlier, that they come to me and they're like, Hannah, I have not changed a thing. I swear on the Bible that I'm eating the same thing. I'm exercising the same way. Everything is the same, and they're just gaining weight. And you have to believe them, because it's that carb sensitivity that has gone through the roof. So now, unfortunately, they can't eat, exactly the way they used to. And I encourage people to think of less refined carbs and more of nature's carbs. So vegetables, things like that. And just like you mentioned earlier, Brooke, it's not taking away, just think of adding. And if you're eating, the recommended serving size of vegetables, which is insane, it's like 9 cups is what they teach in functional medicine. You're not going to even be able to eat the refined stuff. So add in more good is a good thing to do about that. And then the last thing that I find a lot of women don't know is that resistance training or weight training is one of the best things you can do around this menopausal transition. And that's for a few reasons. One, it obviously supports your muscles to support your bones. Bone health is extremely important as we age for preventing things like osteoporosis and fractures. And then, of course, for the weight loss portion, the best exercise for weight loss is weight training.
You're good. You're so good. You strength train, you eat healthy, you move your body. You've got good resources. Maybe the Lord made me go through this so that when you're in menopause, I got your back.
Yeah, we'll see.
It's like being proactive, right? If you take care of your hormones now, some things, yes, may change when you get into menopause, but I think you're going to have a way better chance of dealing with those symptoms than if you hadn't taken care of yourself throughout the way.
Right. And I've got Hannah who'll listen to me and help me out with all her random tips.
You can join the Facebook group.
I am joining it as soon as we get off this recording.
Come on over.
Yes. So Hannah, we want people to be able to find you and listen to you, get tips from your community. Where can our listeners find you?
Let's see. Join the Facebook group. That is Healthy Hive, which is healthy with an I, HIVE. And then you can find that on all my social media links. So Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. And it's all the same handle, which is healthy with an I at the end with Hannah.
Yes.
Spelled the same way forwards and backwards.
And we'll plug all of that in our show notes. The link to the community, the links to her socials, her website, so you can get the help that you deserve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Love it. All right, Hannah. So next up are 3 gold stars, 3 takeaways you have for our listeners.
Okay. So based on what we talked about, I would say do the self-care. Don't say, all right, Hannah, I'll do do the self-care. It is important now. It is important for your future self. It is important even for your genetics. Like if you're pregnant or if you have kids, it's important for everyone around you. So do the self-care, find something you like. The second would be to dabble in intermittent fasting. Start small, start at a 12-hour. And again, make sure it's right for you. There's people it's not right for. But if it is, definitely try it out. Powerful for gut, powerful for anti-aging. And one more. Okay, so this would be set up your daily life to be intuitive, to be in alignment with your health goals. I see this conflict a lot. And if you are living your daily life in the way that will get you where you want to be, that is how you will find success there. Just to give an example, if you want to lose weight, but you work a 9 to 5 sitting down and you have to eat on the go, it's nice to want to lose weight, but that is going to be an uphill battle. So find ways to incorporate those goals throughout your daily life.
I love it. It's all about little things you can do to set you up for success, ways you can manipulate your environment, feeling supported, joining groups, thinking about what you're putting in your body and how you're living, right? It's not just the foods you eat, but it's what you consume, the media, the people. It all impacts how we feel.
Yeah. And I like the idea of the picture of your health, right? And alignment, because when you're out of alignment, whether it's with stress management, with food, with exercise, if you're not moving enough. If you haven't had a vegetable in the last 4 hours, when things are not matching up with what you really want and what you're actually doing. It sounds so simple, but it's not. It's a lot of decisions. It's a lot of different things we can do, which is great, but also a lot. That's why I love these little tips, because it's like these small ideas, little things we can weave in.
And I think you have to make it small because no one is coming to save you, right? You have to want and you have to make these changes yourself. So you have to do it in a way that it isn't going to overwhelm you. It isn't going to spike that cortisol, because we just learned how important it is to lower it back down. So find a way that you feel empowered to make these changes. And maybe that first step is just joining the Facebook group. It's a beautiful step. So do it. All right. And Hannah, we have 3 more questions for you. We could ask you a million questions, but this is Unleashing Ivy, our rapid fire surprise questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. My question is around testing. We need to know what's going on under the hood. So how do you know if you should get your hormones tested? And what do you do if you can't afford it?
Great question. So I'm going to plug myself again here, but I'm so confident about it that I'm going to do it. So if you go through my 30-day program and you are still not feeling good in terms of your symptoms, whether that's the mood swings, the weight, the hot flashes, then I would highly encourage you to invest and get the testing done, because I'm just so confident in what I've laid out that it will balance the cortisol, balance the hormones, feed you whole foods, just take care of yourself in a step-by-step way that you will feel better. And if not, then absolutely it's time to look under the hood. And hormone testing is tricky. It's tricky in the sense that there are 4 different ways to check them, urine, saliva, blood, and each provider has their own style with that. I would try, you brought up cost, and it can be an out-of-pocket cost. But I will also say at my last practice, we were insurance-based and we checked hormones for women once a year. And we were able to get that either covered or, less than $100. So if you're finding a provider that is advocating for you and, is just listening to you, then I, am pretty confident you can get that for a decent price where it'll be, worth it for you to see what's really going on there. And I'll just say, I work a lot, I'm like a certified Institute of Functional Medicine coach, and they have an amazing provider search on their website. So if you're ready to find a new provider or want someone, more functional, go to their website. It's totally free. You put in your zip code so you actually find someone by you.
Ooh, we'll add that to our show notes too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always tell my clients, ifm.org, look it up.
All right, my question has to do with supplements, because when I think about functional medicine, I always think like, oh, there's a cabinet of supplements, or I see it in these TikToks with people. And I know it's different for everyone. Like if you're tested, you know what you probably need. But for the majority of people, are there supplements you think everybody should be taking? And what are these, like, how do you know which brand to choose?
I do think there's some, support that everyone could be taking, and why it's not even so much an individual basis. It's the society of America that we live in. Our soil is depleted. We aren't outside enough. We're not active enough. If we're eating organic, great, but that's not the case for everyone. The meat is a whole nother issue, have it being good source and all that. So really our whole lifestyle we're living and we're told to be living isn't the best for our biology. That's where, supplements really come from to add to that. So what are some things that everyone can consider? A daily multivitamin. That's really, really good. I do an organic greens powder. That's good for both natural energy and gut health, like a little daily detox for you. Beetroot powder, that's one of my favorites. That's really good for anti-aging, for skin, and again, for energy. And then the other two I'll say to consider would be a magnesium. And yes, there are like 5 different magnesiums, and it depends what's going on. But consider magnesium for just total health, gut health, and sleep. And then a B vitamin, like we were talking about. It just really helps your detox process, your hormone levels. Again, just one of those that helps so many different things in your body. And a lot of the times when I do tests, like you mentioned, and I see, those are common things that most people are depleted in. And the other one I'll say, which I have to say, is vitamin D3. So many people are low on that. So definitely ask for that level checked. That can be covered at least once a year. Find a good provider.
Yeah. And what about the brand? Like, how do you know? Because there's a million now. How do you know one that's like legit high quality?
I mean, how I know is and this is really on the provider end, but I use a company called FullScript, and they vet all the companies, all the brands have to go through advanced testing. So not everyone can get in to sell on FullScript. So for my patients, I send them links through FullScript where I know everything on there has been through these standards. But brands that I can, just name drop, Thorne is really great. Pure Encapsulations, Metagenics, those are typically clean, high quality products.
Okay, thank you.
But do your research for sure, because you're right, that's the Wild West out there.
All right, and our last question, Hannah, if you could go back to younger Hannah, what is one thing you would tell her?
I like this. For my 10 minutes, I've been reflecting. So I've actually been journaling. And what I've kind of noticed is a common theme throughout my life is I'm always looking at what's next. I've always said, I can't wait till I can drive. I can't wait till I graduate. I can't wait till I'm working. And then you get there and half the time it's not, what you thought. So as I'm doing these reflections, I'm like, I wish I could just tell myself to slow down and enjoy the spot that I'm in, because it really is all about that journey. And that sounds cheesy, but it really is. Like, you remember the memories from the journey more than, that end point. And how that relates to this is in every single way. People go work with you or they work with me, and it's not easy. Like, we're advocating them to change major things going on. And they see that end goal and maybe they're like, I just want to lose 5 pounds or whatever. But it's really about learning about yourself and what you're capable of and all the little things, that you experience while you're going through that. So that's definitely what I would tell my younger self.
I love that. I love what you just said, that what you're capable of. Because in the midst of this change, you can celebrate these shifts you're making. It's not easy to take control of your health. And so when you do, and that's what Brooke and I see when our clients do have big success, is on the day that you went for a walk, celebrate that. And that doesn't mean eat a chocolate bar because you went for a walk to celebrate. It means say something kind to yourself, pat yourself on the back, high five yourself, put an X on the calendar, some way to celebrate the fact that you are putting effort towards taking care of yourself, because it is easy to scroll and to move on to the next and think of the next thing. And I'll be happy when, and most of the time you get there and you're just thinking of the next thing, like you said. So that is so beautiful. Thank you for saying that.
Totally agree. Yes. It's important.
Yeah. And the work you do is important. We're so grateful that you took time out of your busy day to sit with us to share your knowledge, your wisdom with our audience. We're so grateful that they get more access to you, that we get more access to you. And so we just want to say thank you for being you.
Thank you guys. I love your podcast. I'm so excited to be here. This was fun.
And Hannah, last but not least, we leave our listeners with a piece of gold. Would you please share yours?
Okay, so a quote that's always stuck with me, and it takes different, meanings as I go through life. But Steve Jobs actually said, the world around you was created by people no smarter than you. And that always stuck with me. And right now I'm seeing it as, our celebrations in society, or what is, looked at as fun or experiences or gatherings, they often revolve around things that aren't, again, in alignment with people's health goals. So maybe people, go out drinking, and maybe, I know this is me, for Christmas, it's a freaking buffet of all these sugars and stuff. And not that you should not do that, but in general, create your life to be the way that fuels you, and to be it in a way that you can be happy with and you can be proud of, and live in a place that you get excited about spending a day often. So really just, it's your life. You can be the one to create it, to set your rules that live in alignment with your health goals. So I love that quote.
This is Gold Ivy signing off. Listen to your truth and go chase your gold.